What's up guys, welcome back to Texas Young Guns. In today's video we are going to be working on our tow truck, aka Silver Fox. Now we love this truck. It rides comfortably enough for a Super Duty or heavy duty truck. We love the way it tows, the gas mileage isn't horrible. I've done a lot of stuff to this truck. But if there's one thing I got a gripe about, and it's a big gripe for me, it is the short legs of this truck. Meaning that it only has a 26-gallon fuel tank. So if you're only getting, let's say, 10 miles per gallon with the wind at your back, you are not going very far as you do the simple math. 10 times 26, which really you're not going all the way to empty. But anyways, point is you are filling up a lot. So there are a couple of main options out there if you're wanting to upgrade, and the one I have chosen is by S&B Filters. They have some of the best reviews on the internet for their tanks. By the way, the other option was Titan. I just remembered it actually, but we are going to be installing that today to give us a little bit more range. This tank from S&B is actually a 56-gallon tank. It's got baffles inside of it to keep that much fuel from sloshing around. And the other really cool thing about S&B's tank, and the main reason why I chose it, is because I can use the stock float and fuel cylinder that's already in the truck, so I didn't have to purchase that. Now this tank was around about $1,000 is what I bought it at. Maybe a little bit more, I don't really remember. But anyways, the point is to get us a little bit of range in this truck so we're not having to stop so often. So that being said, let's go grab it and unbox it and get this thing rolling. Alright, so this is what you get. You get the tank, of course. You get these metal straps that will help hold the weight of the tank. You get some hardware and then some instructions. As you can see, I got the 56-gallon tank. If you had the long wheelbase, you can get the 70-gallon tank. They also have other tanks as well. So there's actually an after axle tank. There's another 40 gallons. And of course their line of fuel filters. And more filters. As you can see, this baby is large. I would say it's somewhere in between 5 to 6 feet long. And there is a trade-off with getting a bigger tank. That trade-off is going to be weight. So I don't know how much fuel is per gallon. I think water is around, 5 to 7 pounds a gallon. I might be way off on that. But just do the math, 60 or 56 gallons times that much. You're going to be adding about double the weight of what you did in your stock tank. For us, that's worth it. That's for you to decide. It's all about how often do you want to stop and how far do you want to go and how much safety you have in between stops, because you certainly don't want to be stuck somewhere because you just don't have that much fuel. I personally don't want to carry around jerry cans. I don't really like the in-bed fuel tanks because the lines eventually kind of like rot out. Maybe if a valve doesn't hold, you're going to overfill. All those different kind of scenarios. I'd rather just have a stock placement tank in our truck, and that's what we will be installing. So alright, so we pointed the phone at the QR code and here we are, and they will give you install instructions. So I'll probably print this and have it for me to use. Alright, so we are under the truck, and step 1 called for removing the clamps. This is on the filler neck and the vent neck. Next thing we got to do under here is this skid plate for the fuel tank. We got to remove it. Next step is to remove the straps. Now I have it supported with a floor jack because I don't have a lift. But as soon as you take these straps off, the tank is going to want to fall, so make sure you got it supported. The next step is to lower this tank. Be careful, but lower it about 6 inches to a foot, really not more than 6 inches, because you're going to have to get your hand in there and disconnect some electrical connections. Now, the Ford ones, I'm sure all manufacturers are the same. They suck, quite honestly. But let's see if we can't get the electrical undone. So as you can see right there, you'll have to undo this red tab with like a screwdriver or something, and then pull the connector off. By far was the hardest part. So be patient with these. So you got to pull, you see the blue and yellow tabs, you got to pull them out, and then the curved flat part of that same tab, put your thumb on it and your fingers on the other side, push down, and then gently pull up. Be very patient. You definitely do not want to break these. So once you have the connections undone, it is now time to lower the tank. Be very careful, especially if you still have fuel in it. I recommend trying to get as much fuel out as you can, but try to get someone to help you with this. I don't have anybody, so I'm gonna have to be very careful, but just lower it down slowly and it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, so we have the old tank out, and this is the first time we'll get to see both of them together. As you can probably see, the new one is so much bigger. Not only is it obviously longer, I would say it's about a third longer, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe closer to half, or double the size, I mean. But it is also a little bit taller, so I think the new tank will sit 2.5 inches lower than the old one. So you can see this one is definitely the original. Look how nasty this sucker is. But I believe the next steps are going to have me transferring the float over to the stock tank. I don't think you can probably tell by the video, but you can tell by the way it's sitting on the ground that the fuel float and everything is about the same height as the new one. So that's how they're getting away with using the original OEM float, is that it has the same depth in the tank, at least in that spot. So one of the things in the package is this O-ring. This will go into the main area where the float goes, and we will throw this in the O-ring groove. Next, we are going to take a flat screwdriver and a soft blow hammer and knock this outer ring like this and knock it out of there. And make sure and remove the float very carefully. You do not want to damage this because we are trying to reuse it. And the bottom cup, the actual float itself might hold fuel, so just know you might splash. Over on this new one, we will reinstall the same float, being very careful and not to spool any fuel. So after getting this lock ring on, make sure it's past the indentation, of course, and the arrow lines up and all that. We're going to transfer over the fill and vent hose over to this new one. But before we put the fill hose back on, there's a check valve that we got to install. So we'll start by loosening the metal rings on these and take them off. So it helped me to keep this tank in the same orientation I took out that one, to know how these go. You need to keep track of the orientation these were in whenever you installed this. But there's a check valve with a flow arrow, and the flow arrow is going to go towards the tank, and you're going to slip it inside here like this. So this is your rollover line, and the next thing we're going to do is zip tie it to this line here, making sure that this stays more in the upward position. So we are back under the truck now, and these are the two lines, the fill and return lines. Remember the blue and yellow connectors. we're going to reverse those. According to SMB, it will make it easier. So simply take it out of these brackets right there and over here, excuse me for the light, and reverse them. All right, not too hard. You can see how the lines are a little twisted now, but not in a bind at all. But anyways, they have been reversed. So this is the last you will see both tanks together. Excuse me for the birds outside. So it is now, once you have all the lines in, you got it zip tied, you got the float and cinder in there, it's time to get this under the truck. If you're like me and you're on the floor, you might have to jack up the truck a little bit to get the fuel tank under there. And then you'll need to use that same jack or a different one to actually raise up the tank into position. So you can see now that I have the tank most of the way up, but not all the way up, because remember, you still have to make those connections. Make sure that your fill line and your vent line are not in a pinch. Go ahead and drape them over the frame rail. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install this U-bolt. And it goes in between that frame mount towards the front of the tank and that bolt. So you got to get it over the frame, in between that bolt and that mount right there. Just like so. So now we are in our favorite spot, doing our favorite task. Some sarcasm there. We need to reconnect the fuel lines, the return line, and the fill line for the truck, as well as the electrical connector for the sending unit. Next, get your middle strap and feed it on the other side. You might have a tight fit in between the drive shaft and the tank, but you're going to use that bolt up there and get a tight fit. Now moving over to where the U-bolt is, this hook one support is going to go up into those U-bolts and go underneath the indentation on the tank. And then lastly, we will be doing the back strap. Same process as the other two. Whew! How dirty am I? On the scale of 1 to 10, is my face completely like sooted over? I guess now the only thing to do is to start it. Make sure you put diesel in, obviously. I feel like that doesn't need to be said, but maybe it does. So let's turn the key and see if she'll start. The way I did it is I turned the key 3 times to the on position and just let it sit. I didn't start it. I let the fuel pump suck air, try to get as much air there as possible, and then there she is. She started. Alright, well I have showered to get all that diesel and nastiness off of me, so should look a little better now to you guys. But we're going to do the last step of this. The truck will run, we started up and everything, but you've got to reprogram the computer because you're obviously going from that 26-gallon tank to a 56-gallon tank. So in order to do that, you can do it 2 ways. When you buy the SMB gas tank, they send you an easy link. Basically it's a programmer that can come with it, and you can do it yourself, or you can subscribe to a program which I highly recommend for anybody who owns a Ford. It's called ForScan, and that's what I'm going to do. So let's do that right now. Alright, so once you're ready, I have the OBD Max EX, whatever they call it. I'll put a link down below, hooked up to my truck over to my laptop. Once you're over here to your laptop, you'll open up a program for Ford. It's called ForScan. So it should automatically connect to your truck. I've already previously connected to it, so it's asking me if I want to reuse that truck. I say yes, and so it's going to look for all your modules. Check for any DTCs. As you can see, I have 2, one in the HVAC and one in the body control module. Those are old codes though. But over here on the left side, you go to the configuration and programming, and what you're going to be looking for is the IPC, or instrument panel control. And once you've selected it, not the as built but the other one, come down here, hit the little play button. And you're gonna see all these different things that you can actually change on your truck. Just be careful and know what you're doing here. What you're gonna look for this is fuel tank in gallons if you're in the US. You'll be using gallons. If you're international, you'll be using liters. So you double click into the number there. I have already changed it to 56, but I'm showing you this is where you would type in, click in here, hit the little checkbox, and you'll come down here and hit the right button. And on mine I said no changes, but on yours you'll say yes. It'll write it. It should take only about 2 to 5 seconds, and you're done. So as you can see, I have, let me get a little closer here. As you can see, I have a little over half a tank, and it has already changed it to 471 miles. So it has been updated. Before, I think even with a full tank with that small one, I was only getting maybe 200 something miles, 300 miles to a tank. So there you go. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it was helpful. If you're thinking about doing the same exact thing, I hope this video helped you out. S&B Filters also makes their own install video, so this is really supplemental to what they have already done. But if you're just looking and just interested and curious about it, this kind of gave you an idea of what it takes. I highly recommend getting a second person to help you out. I was able to do it myself, but of course it just made it that much more difficult. Another big tip I would give you is to make sure you have as much fuel out of the tank as possible. Trying to lift the tank up and down with fuel in it makes it very tough, not only because of the extra weight, but because the fuel sloshes around as the tank becomes uneven when you're lifting it up and down. So fuel will want to go to one side and it makes it really heavy on that one side. Anyways, just a couple of tips for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Probably boring for a lot of you, but the ones who found this video and were interested in doing this, hope it was helpful. So see you in the next one, guys. Bye.